Okay, now this method of purling where the yarn is anchored down, I often use that when I'm purling two stitches together. I find it harder to just anchor, because the yarn has to be anchored over here. I find it harder to get through the stitches that way. When I used to Norwegian purl all the time, I found it hard to purl two together that way also, because I had to reach so far to get the yarn. So when I purl two together, I often do that anchoring business, and that's the easiest way for me to purl. If I'm going to, sometimes I'll cable a knit purl pattern, and so we're going to pretend some of these are knits and some of these are purls. So let's say I have it in the back like this, so I'm doing that kind of across. And let's say I'm doing a knit purl knit when I have this cable needle in here. So since I hold both cable needles, so let's say I'm doing a knit, I come around here, and to get this yarn around to the front in order to purl, sometimes it's a big pain, so I just end up doing a Norwegian purl around like that, and that's a little easier for me, although you wouldn't know it by watching me now. That seems to be easier for me to do a Norwegian purl around these needles than rather than trying to bring the yarn to the front, and then I can come back here, and I might do a Norwegian purl, or I might if I try to bring the yarn in front here, then this needle's in the way. So keeping the yarn back here to do a Norwegian purl is just sometimes easier for me when I'm doing cables. The other reason I might use a Norwegian purl, I'm going to finish this row here and then I'll show you with the spare needle, is if I'm casting on in long tail in pattern. So maybe I want to cast on as a knit purl. So this will be my knit. I'll do knit two, purl two. So there's two, and I can do a Norwegian purl. Norwegian purl fairly easily when I'm casting on, much more easily than I could do it a different kind of continental purl where you have to bring the yarn forward and then try to bring it through the loop and try to mess with it that way. Because you can keep the yarn in back when you Norwegian purl, it's easy for casting on. Now the reason I might use the Eastern or combined purl is sometimes people find that the stitch after a cable is particularly loose, so they might want to use Eastern knits or purls on that stitch. I noticed that if I'm doing Bavarian Travel twisted stitch patterns, sometimes I want my stitches to twist to the right, and sometimes I want them to twist to the left, the stitch itself. So if the stitches are traveling right, I might want the stitches to twist right. If they're traveling left, I might want them to twist left. So that's a reason where I might want to, so let's get past here. So let me get past this cable business here. Knit purl, there's a knit. Okay, so let's say, so here I'm going to do 3 Eastern purls, so the yarn's going around clockwise. And then I'm going to do 3 Western purls. And then on the next row, when you twist a stitch, you work through the left leg of the stitch. So these are my Western stitches, and the left leg hangs over the back, so I have to knit through the back to twist those stitches. And if you can see how they're crossing to the left. Now these stitches are mounted on the needle with the right leg in back, so the left leg is in front, and in order to twist I have to work through the front, which is where the left leg is. So those I would twist this way. And hopefully you can see that these stitches are twisting to the right and those are twisting to the left. And those are just some of the reasons I might use different purling methods for different situations. And that's it.